The Formula One Singapore Grand Prix is this weekend, and I'm here to go over my picks for the entire grid, starting with qualifying, going through the race, and we're going to take a little look at the end at the last 2 years of races to kind of sum up what to expect this weekend. Let's get started right away with qualifying. We're going to start first with the Q1 exits. Down in last place, I'm going to go Guan Yu Zhou, kind of just been the back marker all season. Um, 19th here, I'm gonna go Alcon. Alpine the last couple years haven't been good here. The car has been super unreliable recently and just not that great. He also just hasn't been that good recently either. So I'm gonna go with Alcon for 19th. 18, I'm gonna go Valtteri Bottas. Uh, yeah, I mean it's hard for them to even make it out of Q1. Gotta feel bad for him, but probably going to be 18th. 17th, we're going to go with the other Alpine. We're going to go Pierre Gasly. Again, they just haven't been that great recently. Reliability issues overall, just not great. And I don't think this circuit's going to benefit them at all. And the final Q1 exit in 16th, the window licker, Lance Stroll. Uh, I might just be a hater, but I just don't see him doing that well here. He crashed in Q1. I think it was last year, pretty bad. Uh, I don't think he'll crash, but I just don't. He hasn't looked great recently either, to be honest. I think he's just trying to give them every reason to get him out of there when Newey comes in. But anyway, going on to Q2. Bottom of Q2 in P15, I'm gonna go with Danny Rick. I'm gonna be honest, guys. I think he's going out sad this weekend. I don't think it's gonna go too well. I feel for him. I feel bad. I wish I could say otherwise, but I think he's gonna go out pretty sad this weekend. 14 out qualifying him. I think it's gonna be Franco Colapinto. He's been looking pretty good recently. Was good on the street circuit last weekend, and the Williams has been good too. So the last couple years, Williams hasn't been great here, but recently they've really seemed to have hit a stride, and they were good on the street circuit last weekend. So I have no reason to believe that that'll drop off too much into this weekend. Returning this weekend and in 14th, 13th is Kevin Magnussen. I'm gonna go with. Followed by Yuki Tsunoda in 12th. Again, RB hasn't been good here the last couple of years, and the car has just been pretty crap recently anyway. I don't even know if it matters if they bring any upgrades, to be honest, because they just haven't been great recently, and the whole season too, just not great. Um, Rounding out Q2, I am gonna go with the other Williams, Alex Albon. They've been pretty dead set in the top 10 recently, but I have a feeling that the Haas of Hulkenberg and Alonso will be able to keep them out of it. So let's get on to the top 10. Rounding out the top 10 in P10 is going to be Fernando Alonso, followed by Nico Hulkenberg. I think the top eight's pretty much set. I don't think any of these other teams have a chance of getting into the top eight. I mean, it's just been pretty set all year. Um, all these teams have been good in different ways at this track, in different moments, and I think just based on recent races, I'm gonna go with the two Mercedes of Russell and Hamilton down in seventh and sixth, and fifth I'm gonna go. Or sorry, 10, 9, 8, 7. Sorry, sixth is going to be. This is really tough, man, because Checo's been really good here recently. He outqualified Max last weekend. He outperformed him. Max, said it was a setup issue going into qualifying. Obviously, that's totally believable, but at the same time, it doesn't change the fact that Checo's really good on the streets, man. I'm gonna go with him in six, but I think this is gonna be probably my biggest miss of the weekend. I do think he'll end up somewhere in the top three, maybe. He's just been good at the streets, man. I don't know what it is. He's finally got control of the car again. It seems like he's seemed more comfortable, and I don't know if one good race is enough to say that he's back, but I think that he's gonna have a good weekend and end up in sixth in qualifying. Fifth, top five. I'm going to go with in fifth Carlos Sainz. He was on pole last year with a really good time. But he's been kind of hanging around the 5-6 area in qualifying and in the races. He hasn't been outperforming really at any track. Didn't outperform last weekend really, and I think he'll just end up getting stuck behind obviously the McLarens and Leclerc, who's been equally as good here. In fourth, I'm gonna go with Max Verstappen. I think he'll find something this weekend. Hopefully, he doesn't try to do anything crazy with the setup, and yeah, I think he'll. he'll find something a little extra this weekend because he knows that Lando's gonna. That was his big chance last weekend to get some points, and that didn't end up very well for him. With Lando finishing ahead of him. But in third place, I'm going to go with Oscar Piastri. Um, I think Lando probably would have outqualified him in Baku if it wasn't for the Q1 issue. Uh, it's been kind of back and forth, but I think overall Lando's been better in qualifying and Oscar's been better in the race. And it's been weird, man. They've been better on in different stints. One guy at the beginning of the race is faster, and then the other guy at the end of the race is faster on different tires. It's been weird with them, so it's so hard to say. But I'm gonna go with both of them in third and second. I'm gonna go Lando in second, and I'm going to go with Charles Leclerc on pole. I think he'll be able to pull it out. He has been in just really prime form recently and has a lot of confidence, I'm sure. I feel confident that he'll be able to get pole this weekend, but I don't know if that's going to translate into a race victory. So let's move on to the race classification, including DNFs this weekend. I am going to predict a couple of DNFs, starting with Guan Yu Zhou. I think he's just gonna like hit a wall or something, man. Honestly, that's not even trying to hate. That genuinely what I think is gonna happen. I'm gonna go with Alcon as well. I think it's gonna be a reliability issue with between him and Gasly. It's been like every other weekend, so I think that's a pretty safe bet. And third, and this one's kind of a tough one because he just had one last weekend as well. But I'm gonna go with Yuki Tsunoda, man. I think he's just gonna get a little bit too over aggressive somewhere, and there's just not gonna be enough space for him. And I could just see that happening again. So let's get on to the rest of the grid. I'm just going to place the non-point finishers at the bottom here with the rest column, and then we'll go through the top 10. So rounding out the bottom of the grid, whatever place it ends up being, I'm going to go Valtteri Bottas, followed by Pierre Gasly, Danny Rick on probably his last race weekend, unfortunately, followed by Lance Stroll, Colapinto, I think he'll get up there, no points, but I think he will be next to Magnussen and Hulkenberg. I think they're going to miss out on points again this weekend and go out sad again without Albon taking the one single point for 10th place. I think he'll be able to get up into the top 10 eventually. Um, I get the feeling that a Haas is going to be in the top 10, but that means that one of the top 8 teams is not going to have somebody too. So it's like it's just tough to say who's going to get those last 2 spots in the top 10. But for this race, I think it's going to be Albon, and I think it's going to be Fernando Alonso pulling out a couple points. Followed by in eighth, I'm going to go Russell passes Hamilton in the race. So we're going to go Hamilton and then Russell 10, 9, 8, 7. Sixth, we're going to go Carlos Sainz. I think Checo will be able to get past him in fifth. Followed by his teammate Max in fourth. I don't think he's going to go anywhere. Obviously, if Checo does get past, he's not going to pass Max. So Piastri in third. And here's where it gets a little tricky. So we know Lando likes to just ruin his entire race if he has pole. I do think that one of the Ferraris is going to get pole, whichever one it may be. And I think Lando's going to be on the front row regardless. So that gives me the feeling that he's going to be able to pass at some point, whether it's, overcut or undercut, whatever it may be, or if he just passes him straight up. I think he'll be able to get past. And considering the fact that McLaren's allowed to cheat right now with the rear wing, I don't think they're going to be able to pass him at all. So I'm going to go with Leclerc losing the race again to the McLaren, but this time of Lando Norris. I think he will pull it out. I think he'll just have better pace. I think that the McLarens have been a bit better. Actually, that's not true. The Ferraris have been a bit better on the tires, so it's going to be tricky, but you can be a bit worse on the tires when you have perpetual DRS at high speed. So I do think that's going to play a big role because they're going to bring the same thing. Obviously, the FIA said it's legal. They're going to bring the same thing, and that's going to play a role because, as you saw last weekend in Baku, it's almost impossible for anybody to get past if they have that wing on. And yeah, unless they make a mistake, unless Lando makes a mistake, he's prone to making mistakes sometimes. I feel like Piastri is the cleaner racer, but Norris is just faster and flashes. Let me know what you think, but I think that one of the McLarens is going to get past. Here's the way I see the entire weekend. I think a Ferrari takes pole and a McLaren wins the race. Unfortunately, I think that's how it's going to go again. 2 weekends in a row for Ferrari fans having to take that, but yeah, I think the most most interesting thing about the weekend is the addition of the fourth DRS zone on the track because Red Bull has been the best on DRS this year, and if McLaren has their, little DRS thing going on and maybe Ferrari has some issues, that could be tricky if it starts becoming, Max and Piastri are near each other or Max and Lando are near each other. That could be a little tricky. I get the weird feeling that there's going to be a big crash like in the top 3 again, kind of like there was. These street circuits are just tough, man. I mean, the one that happened last week was totally avoidable. That was a really, really weird one. They just kind of drifted into each other, but I just get the feeling that I think for sure at least one of these races before the end of the year we're gonna see another Max and Lando crash. I get the feeling it might be this weekend. I think there's a chance that Max could be third and maybe Lando could be second to Charles and first or something like that. But that's my race picks. We're gonna go run through real quick. Lando Norris in P1, followed by Leclerc and Piastri rounding out the top three. Verstappen and Checo take fourth and fifth. I have Sainz in sixth. Russell and Hamilton 7-8. Alonso ninth, and Albon getting the last point in 10th. Hulkenberg 11th, Magnussen 12, Colapinto 13, Danny Rick 14, Windowlicker 15, Pierre Gasly 16, and Bottas rounding out the bottom in 17 with Guan Yu Zhou, Ocon, and Yuki Tsunoda DNFing. That's going to be my official predictions. Let's quickly go over the last 2 years of races because 2020 and 2021 did not happen due to the vid. Last year we had Carlos Sainz on pole and Carlos Sainz win the race with the top three only 1.5 seconds apart, which is pretty ridiculous. After that, it was obviously a massive gap to the rest of the field, but a tight race up top. 2022, we had Leclerc on pole and Perez came through from number two on the grid to win the race by 2.6. Red Bull at that point still had a pretty dominant car, so the fact that Leclerc got pole and was that close anyway was pretty solid at that point. But that was also six DNFs there and five DNFs last year. So I think the three that I predicted probably isn't too ridiculous. But just to finish off the video here, let's go over a couple of betting picks that I like for the weekend. First, I like Sergio Perez top six at plus 110. If you get plus money on that or close to it, if it's a toss up like minus 100, whatever 110, I like that. I think he's going to be pretty set up in the top six. I like him close to the top three, but I would definitely not bet for him on the podium. Um, I like qualifying team. I love Ferrari at plus 200. Double your money on Ferrari to qualify. They've out qualified the last 2 years. They've won qualifying the last 2 years, and I think they're poised for it again this season. One more. I like McLaren to win as well. It's gonna be a favorite bet. You're not gonna make a ton of money on it, but I think it's probably the safe bet. And just based on the rear wing and how they've been recently and all the factors, I think McLaren's probably going to win, but I really like Ferrari to win qualifying. So if you want to pair that up, you might be able to make some good money on that, or just bet on the Ferrari one. Plus 210 is pretty solid for that. If you can get plus money on that, I like Ferrari to win qualifying. So that's going to wrap it up. I'm going to be back after qualifying for a recap as well as for the race and a recap. So make sure you like the video if you like the video, subscribe, and keep an eye out for more videos. Go check out the last video, and I'll see y'all soon. Peace.